Egypt's role in shaping peace worldwide in a world that is actually at crossroads. And before beginning, let me say congratulations to Egypt on yet another remarkable diplomatic milestone, which is the powerful vote of confidence from across the Arab world for former Egyptian Foreign Minister, His Excellency Nabil Fahmy, who has been unanimously endorsed to serve as the Secretary General of the League of Arab States. And this is for the next 5 years. It comes very much timely and at a timing where we have lots of regional developments in Egypt's enduring stature and credibility and diplomacy and trust. All this is a great reflection of all those norms. So the timing couldn't be more significant than this timing. The ministerial meetings that took place in Amman, Egypt stood actually at the center of the critical discussions shaping the whole future of the region. His Excellency Egypt's top diplomat, Dr. Badr Abdelati, held intensive consultations with Arab counterparts, engaged in discussions with the different countries, with Iraq, Lebanon, Sudan, Palestine, and the Gulf states. So those series of strategic phone calls and how Egypt is observing events as they unfold and actively actually shaping the conversation for a sustainable path of peace and stability across the whole region and also the world. So many questions actually are there on the table. Is diplomacy truly returning to the forefront of global politics today, and can negotiations actually succeed in what weapons didn't succeed for doing or have failed in doing? And how is Egypt actually transforming those decades of diplomatic expertise into a force, a great force for peace, for continuity in such a turbulent world? And I am having all the honor, very much delighted to have with us Dr. May Batran, who is future studies expert. Dr. May herself, I'm really expecting a fascinating and timely discussion, being herself a great image for Egypt and also an icon for women empowerment. Thank you so much, Dr. May Batran.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, together we'll be talking about the strength of Egyptian diplomacy and the messages that Egypt is sending to the world. But first, let us watch this report that highlights from battlefields to the negotiating tables. The question is global diplomacy making a comeback? Let's watch.
After years in which wars, military escalation, and geopolitical confrontation dominated international affairs, a different trend is beginning to emerge across multiple global flashpoints. The gradual return of diplomacy, from the Israel-Iran confrontation to Ukraine, Sudan, Lebanon, and several regions across Africa, political dialogue is competing with the language of force. Egypt welcomed the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Iran, describing it as an important step towards reducing tensions, preventing further escalation, and restoring stability across the Middle East region. Cairo also highlighted the significance of sustained diplomacy and regional coordination in achieving this breakthrough. Against this backdrop, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi continues to advance a consistent message at international conferences, stressing that peace cannot be imposed through military means. Egypt's leadership has repeatedly warned of the devastating humanitarian, economic, and security costs of prolonged conflicts, while emphasizing the need to preserve state institutions and prevent regional collapse. This vision was strongly reflected during the resumed 165th Ordinary Session of the Council of the League of Arab States in Amman, Jordan. On the sidelines of the ministerial meetings, Foreign Minister Abdelati delivered Egypt's address. He described the U.S.-Iran Memos of Understanding as a significant opportunity that should be built upon through political engagement and sustained negotiations. The top diplomats stressed that any emerging regional security arrangements must respect Arab interests, safeguard Gulf security, ensure freedom of navigation, uphold state sovereignty, and advance the goal of the Middle East free from nuclear proliferation. Egypt's top diplomat also reaffirmed Cairo's rejection of any displacement of Palestinians, support for Lebanon's sovereignty, and commitment to a comprehensive and just resolution of the Palestinian cause. The Amman meetings also witnessed unanimous Arab approval of former Egyptian Foreign Minister Nabil Fahmy as Secretary General of the Arab League States for a 5-year term beginning July 1st, 2026. The decision reflected broad confidence in Egyptian diplomacy and recognition of Egypt's central role in strengthening collective Arab action. As international powers reopen channels of communication seeking political exits from crises, the key question remains: are these negotiations the foundation of lasting peace? The answer may define the future of the international order itself.
Dr. Naib, from the eyes of a future studies expert, while we're talking the future vis-à-vis international relations, for years it has been an endless cycle of violence. But now the question is diplomacy once again making a comeback?
The answer for a comeback is a definite yes. But the result of that is the real debate. Your report here ended with, will we reach a sustainable peace? This I wonder.
Yes.
This is the real question. The changes that the world has passed through these last few years, and actually these last few months, have a huge impact on all aspects of life, particularly our political lives and political certainties, if you will, if there are any certainties in politics. The extreme effects of the Iran war, for example, on global trade. So we're talking Iran, we're talking Middle East, we're talking a war in a certain area of the world, but we're talking global impact. This is a huge point to take into consideration while negotiating any peaceful, non-war, non-aggressive course of action. Talking about economic situations in many countries, yes, economic aspirations for people. And this is also has a huge impact on people willing, nations willing to go into war, and the let's say the populists and support for a country or the other going to war. And we've seen what's going on in the United States of America, and the lack of support of the American people towards war in general, and particularly what's going on in the Middle East. And then something else that also has to make or has made a fantastic appearance in the world stage is technology, and particularly AI. And what AI needs in terms of energy and in terms of fuel. And this definitely impacted politics, impacted economy, impacted the world powers moving from one side to the other. So mentioning world order, changes in the world order, definitely there are changes that are caused by political decisions in the past few years, and more emphasized by what is happening in AI. It is pushing world order change, pushing shifts in positioning of world leaders, G7 leaders, and even countries with lesser clout, but with people to answer to, with mouths to feed, with an economy to maintain and to build, and futures to build for future generations.
Yes, definitely we are in a revolution vis-a-vis AI, the technology that has really changed the face of the world and changed the face also of international relations. I believe that AI is also changing the way diplomacy right now is being translated in vis-a-vis global affairs.
I believe AI, when we look at AI, it's not only AI, but also I want to put on the table and in our discussion young people and the demographics in each country and why AI is so important. What we think in a certain generation we accept in terms of technological updating or technological enhancement, or there is now something called a transhumanism. So is this a machine or a human person with implants and things like that? The whole issue is how do young people regard technology vis-a-vis everything. Vis-a-vis politics, vis-a-vis economy, vis-a-vis their own social engagement, if you will.
Yes.
So all of these things really are shifting world economy and ultimately world politics. And I want to call the shift it's an integral shift in reality. It is a real it's a different world that we're living in. It's a world where facts are no longer there. Of course, I have to emphasize at this point, like you mentioned at the beginning, the position of our Egypt and the position of our leadership, our executive arm headed by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and our top diplomat, Dr. Badr Abdel Ati. Egypt has always maintained, and I will not even say tried to maintain, no, Egypt has always maintained a global role of peace, which was very difficult to maintain, the balance between power and peace. I have the power, I have an army, I have the infrastructure for a great military infrastructure, and part now of the military infrastructure, and we have to be proud as Egyptians and proud as greater Middle Easterns and Africans that our prowess, our military prowess is not only infrastructure of machines, but infrastructure of technology as well. Infrastructure in terms of data centers, infrastructures related to expertise of personnel, having the know-how to tackle issues on a political and on a balance that Egypt has always maintained. We have the power, but we want to maintain peace.
Yes,
so this is where diplomacy comes in.
Yes, and from your words, Dr. May, it like brings and pops up a question regarding this sense of balance and vis-a-vis also Egypt's reading of regional developments. Egypt's wise position and wise leadership undertaking the fact and consistently warning that there can be no military solution to the current crises in the region, but rather resorting to peace in order to have at the end of the path security and stability and durable peace. We need sustainable peace.
Yeah, I want to be a realistic talker relating to enduring peace. What's happening in the region is definitely something to be reckoned and to be in a positive way. All of the parties involved have to be acknowledged, but we will know whether it's a peace after we see the repercussions of the last 2 weeks. The rearrangement of regional powers, the rearrangement, now the positioning of Iran as, I don't want to call it victorious nation, but as a nation that has produced results that were not expected by a lot of experts and a lot of politicians and a lot of countries looking at what was happening at the regions. So the result of that, how will this impact the relationship between, for example, Iran and Turkey, relationships between the Gulf countries, and now the Gulf countries, we cannot call them Gulf countries as a group of countries. We have to start looking at Qatar, at Bahrain, at Oman, and the UAE. So the realignment of the product of the peace agreement, if you will, or the de-escalation of aggression, of military confrontation, still the result has not, and of course also the presence of Israel in the region, and how is it looking at this new balance. So this has to be really looked at closely.
We will
and wait.
Definitely discuss further that. This sense of de-escalation. Will be back. Working on more than one front. Dr. May, it appeared to be Egypt operating on more than one global front, with intensive consultations on different fronts, talking Jordan with counterparts also in Iraq, in Libya, Tunisia, and we have also the diplomatic victory that we've talked about at the very beginning concerning the unanimous selection of His Excellency, yes, Ambassador Nabil Fahmy as the Secretary General of the League of Arab States at a very challenging time when the whole region is actually facing lots of turbulences, but it is once again reflecting Egypt's weight in the region and many messages behind.
Egypt is there. God bless Egypt, and God bless its people. God bless those who are peace endurers and peace supporters. Egypt has been working for many years now, for over a decade and a half, nearly a little bit over a decade and a half, in building infrastructure, not only internally for growth and economic growth and for the future, but also for global diplomacy and global weight. What is happening in the region is a disruptor, a real disruptor to politics as we know it. I have to put again on the table the question whether it is a long-lasting peace versus a crisis management situation. But still, crisis management in an extremely problematic, difficult situation is a great success for peace, a great success for saving lives, a great success for looking at a more hopeful tomorrow. This is a point to be reckoned with in terms of the role of Egypt in what's going on within the region. And also I have to bring in the role of Egypt towards maintaining world peace, and the role of Egypt in the result of wars on a global level, because there was an exodus from the African countries of young people from the south, looking towards the north as the solution for their life existence and their livelihoods. And Egypt has had a role there. Egypt has had a role in the problems that exodus caused in Europe. So the problem is not preventing people from reaching Europe, but also trying to maintain or solve the problems of people who have reached Europe in the first place. So if I look at globally, Europe cannot take more wars because Europe cannot take more displaced people wanting to go to Europe. Egypt has done more than its fair share. We have many, we call them visitors in Egypt. We have many visitors coming over for Egypt on this trip towards Europe, and because of conflicts within the region, whether be it from Libya, from our Libyan neighbors, from our Sudan neighbors and family, and whether be it from other more eastern conflicts as well. So all of these is putting a lot of pressure on Egypt, and the pressure for Egypt is like iron with pressure and heat goes into steel, where you can build a lot of peaceful buildings with steel, and build the future. But Egypt, under all of this pressure, has really built a very powerful position in diplomacy, and giving a chance not only for a peaceful chance for its people, but giving a peaceful chance for most of the countries in our neighborhoods and more towards the south and the east, in a very diplomatically excellent, refined, yeah. Thank you, refined way.
Yes,
thank you very much.
This sense of diplomatic, refined way, and let me say that this is what distinguishes the Egyptian diplomacy from other approaches in the region. What could be those tools that you think Egypt had resolved to in order to transform those diplomatic opportunities on the table into lasting peace in a very wise trial?
Fantastic question. The first thing that comes to mind is consistency. Egypt has been consistent throughout. This administration has been truly consistent maintenance of peace. Consistency, and we're not a single player. We are a team player. We are a team player on a global level. Global level meaning our relationships as Egypt with the multilaterals, and the relationships of our top executive, our president, with endorsing the multi-layers, talking on many occasions of it's easy to break down a multilateral institution and it's very difficult to build it again, and those are the first and most important step and preventive measure for any conflict being born before it becomes a war, sticking to multilateral global rules and international laws. So this is our consistency, our support of multilaterals, our team player on a national, African, Middle Eastern and global role. So we believe we have to play as a team, and Egypt is, and in this makes it an extremely good negotiator, because, and then we have a background of, we've got historically, the first peace treaty of the world has been signed in Egypt and has been carved in stone. So, and I think not only in stone, but it has been carved in our DNA as Egyptians. Yes. We can make peace, and we know the impact of peace, and we know the perils of war. So Egyptians, we have the right disposition to be within a conflict and be the balance to take this conflict from a war to crisis management and hopefully ultimately peace.
Yes, definitely. Well, from diplomacy to more than one front, to victory in another sense of the word, let me say, with soft power. With soft power, they're having the upper hand, and we've seen how all Egyptians were actually very much proud, receptive to the vibes coming from the World Cup.
It's a fantastic, again, it's a fantastic point to make, talking about wars and conflicts and talking about diplomacy and peace.
But this is another arm here.
Sports is a fantastic, I've seen, of course, seeing victory on the green field, seeing the faces of victory, the smiles, the body language of victory, looking at that, seeing it from an Egyptian standpoint and with an Egyptian flag, moved a lot of very strong emotions in all of us in Egypt and and everywhere in the world. And this is where I will make a comment. I hope that, I'm sure that you will appreciate where I'm coming from. I've seen The Independent in the morning with victory for Egypt. I've seen The Guardian. I've seen the New York Times. Yes. I've seen the BBC.
Smashing headlines.
So the smashing headlines in some of the international media that was not necessarily in support of our cause on a political side. For looking how Egypt's soft power enforced itself in a very soft, sleek, smart way to have Egypt's name with the victory, with a remarkable achievements within the same media sources that have not been seeing eye to eye what we were trying to show the world internally and via diplomatic channels. For me, it was much more than a victory of many decades of victory, and a victory that has been, we've been looking forward to for decades, but also it has, in a way, looking at the names and the logos with the Egypt as victorious, it gave me very positive vibes to have more victory on an international level, Egypt's name being repeated in the same tone, but in different battlefields, or rather diplomatic fields.
Yes, definitely from victory to victory, and back to our diplomatic victories on the ground. We have more than one victory. Touch wood. Well, Egypt welcomed the U.S.-Iran agreement, and there has been victories regarding vis-à-vis our role to wider regional de-escalation. There has been also the consultations with key Arab partners that followed, with His Excellency, our Foreign Minister, and his meeting in Amman, and stressing the importance of building on this sense of diplomatic momentum. Also our good relations with the Gulf, preserving our credibility and being a trusted regional partner. So the long-standing position of Egypt also vis-à-vis Gaza, that is considered to be the main core when we are talking diplomacy, and Egypt's efforts in that regard as well, Dr. May.
What was happening in the region, and particularly, like you mentioned, what was happening in Gaza, it showed us that military power and military, you cannot create a military victory with having so many pains to so many people, without real balance, without diplomacy. So diplomacy here, Egyptian diplomacy, regional diplomacy, is a key integral component for the resolution of the Gaza conflict, not only for the Gazans and the Palestinians, but also for the Israelis on the other side. You cannot enforce what you want militarily, unilaterally, on a whole people and a whole nation in the way that is happening. So this is where, again, conflict resolution, diplomacy, balance, consistent support, consistent refusal of power, and maintenance of let's sit on a table with the required internal willingness to give in order for lives to continue, for hopes to be built, for dreams to be achieved, for nations to progress within a world that is very quickly progressing towards major disruption in our daily lives. So we don't only have the conflict of war. You know how many wars that have been going on in the last 10 years within globally? We are reaching around 100 conflicts according to the Council for Foreign Relations. The numbers are staggering. If you think number of conflicts and number of countries in the world, and there are countries having more than one conflict, you'd think, how can we progress as... But again, technology is there. Technology, if war continues, technology will have a bad effect on us people and on our progression, because you know that technology is being used to use force within wars. It is saving lives, if you will, on one front, but it is causing extreme damage on another side. So this is something to be considered. Using, instead of using AI to kill, using AI to enhance conflicts and enhance aggression, we can use AI to progress, exactly, to build, to progress health, to progress education, to progress our livelihoods in a way that would help human beings rather than prevent having a good future for young people, millennials, Gen Zs, and now we are looking at generation beta, a totally different generation with a totally different standpoint of things. So we have to resolve conflicts that we've created in order for those generations coming with a totally different mindset, and even the internal chemistry of their brains, believe it or not, Taghlid Hanem, are different. The way the processes of their brain and how their brain produces their logic and their logical results are done in a totally different way than people born pre-2000, so that's archaic, if you will, and then 2000s, and then 2012, and then after 2025. You're talking about different demographics within a changing geopolitical situation. There are a lot of changes within how we look at energy as not only as an integral use for us as humans, but also for our progress. And I will end with for me, a catastrophic statement that Sam Altman said a few days ago. He said that we have to preserve water for AI data centers and machines, because these are the ones who are going to progress the future, rather than to save water for human beings. We have a lot of conflicts coming without having wars. But we really have to focus on economic enhancement, young people, the future, building hopes and dreams for our nation and our neighbors and the world.
Definitely, and since we're talking the future, we're talking AI also, and AI is the future from the eyes of a future studies expert. And let me say that how can we resort to AI as an AI for peace, AI for diplomacy, AI for trust? And what would be the lessons learned, in your opinion, from Egypt mediation efforts as we discussed it, Dr. May?
Egypt has proven that with consistency, sustained point of view of peace, you can reach great progress and great miles within a certain route without resorting to power. AI is exactly like what happened having technological advancements such as the nuclear bomb, before that having the railways, before that and having planes. Each and every technological advancement in humankind in the last 200 years has created a shift in the way we do war, in the way humans and nations do war. War pre-aircraft and pre-aeroplanes was different. War pre-railways and trains was different. War pre-nuclear power was different. And now war post-AI will be different. AI can help save lives, but can help destroy more lives. So it's a balance where we want to take. Drones can be used to targets and contain destruction, but at the same time, if used in very large numbers and in small sizes, they can cause chaos worse than a nuclear bomb. The balance is extremely sensitive, and I believe that with Egypt's proof of prowess in diplomacy, and Egypt has proved its superior intellect, its superior, and with our winning over on the green field in football. So I believe that collectively Egypt would be a very good team player in terms of a global team player for the balance of cybersecurity, the wars of cybersecurity, and how can we maintain the principles and ethics of peace and progress for humanity rather than destruction.
Definitely, and as you've mentioned, Dr. May, Egypt is actually turning decades of diplomatic experience into a force for peace, and this is what really matters. I thank you so much, Dr. May Batran, a future studies expert, for joining us on such a fascinating and timely discussion. Thank you so much for coming.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. And I thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. That was Wednesday Debate, and I'm Taghirit Hussein. Many thanks for watching.